Hi, I'm Carlene from Bite Size Changes. Every week on Make It Stick, we chat with wellness experts to explore what it takes to make those healthy habits a part of our day-to-day life. This week, I'm really excited to introduce Nora Clemens. She's a registered dietitian with years of experience helping clients from various walks of life make strides in their ongoing health journey. I can tell you that she's seen it all and she definitely knows what it takes to make it stick. So get comfortable, grab a beverage, and feel free to use the menu bar to the left to navigate through the video as you wish. And now, let's welcome Nora.
Hi Nora, thanks for joining me. I'd love to get started with a bit of your background. So can you tell me what inspired you to join this industry?
Okay, well, just as soon as I got out of high school, I got a part-time job at a ladies' fitness center. And there was a woman there who already was into vitamins and nutrition. And it was just so intriguing because she was pouring lecithin into a spoon and just taking it like that. And I had never seen anything quite like that. So many conversations later about nutrition, I signed up for my first classes that year at college and took a nutrition class. And the nutrition bug bit. Right away, I knew this was just what I wanted to do. So that was the beginning.
So for you, what does it mean to be healthy?
To me, to be really healthy is the absence of chronic illness and having all the energy that I need and want to do the things that I enjoy doing.
All right. Okay, so the elusive question, how do you get it? How do you get healthiness?
Right. Well, it's a process. The nutrition journey is just that, because we all start as children being raised in our households with our cultural influences, the influences of our family, and that could be anywhere on the continuum of healthy eating. And as adults, we then become either enlightened at some point and start making better choices for ourselves, or we fall prey to marketing and convenience. And nutrition is an afterthought rather than an important priority in our lives. So getting to the place where there's an absence of chronic illness and all the energy in the world is that you have actually fed yourself the kinds of foods that lead to that journey.
Right, so definitely dietary choices are a strong influencer in that preventing or reversing those chronic diseases and that boost of energy that we all want.
Yes. Well, and then just to further just expand, which I think was what you meant. I think eating a whole food nutrition diet is important. Looking at ways to minimize processed foods and eat more natural, healthy, whole foods that have not been processed. So those foods are absence of the negative things that can accumulate, trigger, build up, and maybe lead to chronic illness. And so the other whole foods really build our bodies in such a way, the nutritional status. And actually, then there's a whole world of genomics, how nutrition turns on and turns off genes that can either protect us from chronic illness or turn on genes that actually lead to chronic illness.
Right, that's interesting. It sounds easy when you say it. Eat whole foods. Don't eat packaged foods, or at least reduce your consumption of them. But why is it so hard?
Yeah, well, when you think about it, food is really something that it's really not for our health for most of us. It satisfies hunger. It satisfies our moods, our social setting, our taste buds. Really, nutrition is our habits. It's whatever our habits are. And so it's really hard to change all those things because they're so deeply connected and rooted in who we are. So really, for the person that has that epiphany and says, either, oh, I have a chronic illness and now I need to address it and I'm ready to change, or, oh, I realize, as we've just talked about, if I start laying that foundation now and get on that journey, I can, possibly have that absence of chronic illness and all the energy in the world. So then you're pliable, you're open, you're ready. You're ready to make nutrition changes.
Yeah, it's so important that you were pointing out about food being more than just the fuel for our body to us. Our experience with food is so layered. I have a young nephew, and as he's being weaned, you're seeing how emotional his connection is with his source of food. From birth, food is a very emotional thing. It's much more than just getting the fuel to make our bodies move. So I think that's an important acknowledgement that it can sound simple on paper or even in a nice sentence, but to acknowledge that there are so many different touch points that we have with food. So to, like you said, it's a journey, and to respect it as that rather than, I think sometimes we're hard on ourselves because we want to just wipe the slate clean and start over, but recognizing how integrated it is, as you said, to who we are as a person, I think will help us make strides and understand what we're dealing with.
Yeah, that it's complex.
Yeah, pretty much. It can sound simple, but the reality of it is a little bit complex. So how do we try to, I don't want to say simplify the complexity, but at least clarify what we're dealing with? What do you think are some specific things that make it difficult? What are some specific barriers?
Gosh. Well, for one thing, life today is complex, to use that word again, and, we're all pretty busy. It's rare to find a person who has a very laid-back lifestyle, just hanging out and has all the time in the world. And so I find that because food has turned into a big convenience industry, it's ready for us. And so we just rely on convenience foods to nourish us, to grab and go, rather than thinking about how important my health is to myself and planning ahead and investing time to bring in the healthy food, do some prep, and then have that ready to grab and go. And so convenience really seems to be a pitfall. That's an obstacle to healthy eating.
Yeah, that makes sense, because what you were saying earlier was, in terms of defining healthy eating, would be eating more whole foods and eating less packaged food. And of course, when I go into the kitchen and I'm hungry, if something's ready to eat and the other thing isn't, then the convenient choice is oftentimes that which is packaged. So I can understand how that relates to a day-to-day struggle. Now, you mentioned that, two things I hear is prioritizing. I think that's a shift in perspective in how we view health, which might start with acknowledging that it's complex. So invest the time and to decide that it's worth it, but also in investing the time with planning. So would you say then that planning is the solution to the convenience problem? Or a
absolutely,
solution?
Absolutely. I mean, that is definitely a good way to say that is a solution to the problem.
Okay.
And it begins with maybe even, planning is huge, but in order for us to know what it is we're going to plan to do, there has to be a little bit of an assessment of what it is we want to do. So we need to take some steps back. But yes, planning is definitely part of that.
No, that makes sense. If you don't mind talking a little bit more about that, looking at maybe how do we figure out where we are and where we want to go? Is that what you're saying has to kind of come before planning?
Yeah, that's a good idea. All the great apps that are available nowadays, I think that tracking our food can be fun and innovative. So definitely, I mean, scientifically it's been proven people that track their food intake even do better at eating healthier because they're their own accountability partner. And think about it, you have to log what you're eating. You're going to feel better about yourself if you're logging in healthy foods versus, not so healthy foods. So I think keeping a food log and don't change your intake is a good eye-opening place to kind of look, and you can say, I mean, who doesn't know we need to eat lots of fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables? And you can say, oh, holy smoke, I got one vegetable today or no vegetables. So then maybe you might say, all right, so a good first step for me is maybe not so much taking things out, but putting things in. And invariably, when you put things in, sometimes maybe there isn't room for some of the other things. Right. So a creative way, if that's the situation, is, figure out what you like, get a few of those, don't go overboard, and prepare them at some point when you get home so that they are ready to go as your new convenience foods. Right. So now you've incorporated, you've assessed it, you're going to add something that's healthy, but you're also going to do a little planning and prepping by having it ready to go.
That's cool. I just, kind of on a sidebar, I just downloaded this app called Water Your Body, and all it does is make a water sound every few hours, or every, I don't know how often, and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to drink water. And then I just track, did I have a cup of tea, or did I have a water bottle, or a glass, and I just push a little button. And even just seeing that made me so much, not only more aware, but more likely to pay attention. I think the cool thing about tracking is that it's not just that you can assess, there's that benefit as well, but you become more mindful of what you're doing. Because I take the time to slow down and say, oh, I'm checking out my phone here. Okay, I had this much water, and then I can plan for the rest of the day to get my water in. But there's, like you said, there's so many little apps like that just to kind of see where we are so that we can intelligently make the best fit for me. So like you said, if it's I need to eat more vegetables, I'll be able to know that that's my particular next step rather than guessing based on, it's not one size fits all. There's a lot of different choices. So how we can pick the best one for us might start with tracking. That's cool.
Right.
I need to get a food logging app. That's the next one.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Life is busy. We want to do better, but that's the reality, and it's difficult to compete with convenience. So, as you also mentioned, preparing in advance. I know for me, planning helps. Even if the food is not prepared, if I decide when I'm in that position of strong willpower, but if I decide that I'm going to eat something, then I'm more likely when I open the fridge to say cake or salad that I previously decided on. I'm more likely to call back to what I had decided on before.
Wow, that's interesting. No, that's a good point. So that's setting intention ahead of time.
There you go. Setting intention.
Yeah.
I think that's really the first step of planning. The second step of planning would be to actually prepare, but you have to decide what it is you're going to do. So even if you don't yet make the step to prep in advance, because that can be a bit daunting for people to dive into. I highly recommend it. But even if we make the decision to set our intentions, that can be something to move you a little farther along on that journey towards better health. Very cool.
Okay.
So do you have any tips in terms of prepping that can make it easier?
Oh gosh. There are so many. I think it's important to start small so that we're not overwhelmed and we don't set ourselves up to, buy a bunch of food and then it's there and you're not used to prepping and planning and then it's just going to be too much. But always prepare for more than one meal. So for example, here's one. I mean, just getting back to vegetables because that really is such a great way to, get good nutrition into our bodies. if you're going to prepare vegetables one night for dinner, just start out with preparing more than enough for a second meal. Right away, I mean, that's a small thing, but it's not so small. Now you automatically have a vegetable the next day that you can eat and not have to worry about prepping. Mm-hmm. In terms of salads, now salads can be daunting because it's production. You have, lettuce, carrots, tomatoes, cucumbers, whatever people put in them. And I put a lot of stuff in mine, so there is never a time that I prepare one salad. I pull out all those ingredients. You can bet that I've got 3 bowls in front of me, fill them with lettuce, carrots, tomatoes, cucumbers, celery, on and on and on, whatever I have. Cover them up. They hold. They really do. Right. Top them with a different protein every day, and you've got, lunch on the go, or dinner ready for you when you get home.
Well, that's cool because it's even though convenience may be part of the problem to why we struggle with health, convenience can also be the solution if we create the convenience ourselves. I think so much of the issue with convenience is not so much the concept of convenience, it's that you don't have control over what is put into those convenience foods, and like you said, they're oftentimes not what's best for us. So if we can take a bit of that control back, then that convenience can work to our advantage. So I'm gonna go prep some salads after this call. I've been meaning to. So this is I'm setting the intention publicly.
All right,
post a picture
I'm gonna check on you. But another one of my easy go-tos is those little snack bags. People are always wondering, what should I snack on, or what kind of bars can I buy? Because protein bars or bars can all be convenience, healthy foods. People think just because they've got nature on them or whatever, all the buzzwords. So, and by the way, bars typically are just loaded with sugar, and they're not so great for you. And refined and processed grains oftentimes, believe it or not. So I'm a fan of just take a handful of nuts, throw it in the Ziploc, take a mini box of raisins or the equivalent, throw that in there. Right now you've got your own fruit and nuts. Okay, you can put that in a backpack, in a purse. That is so small, and actually it's non-perishable. Right. That can roll around in your backpack for a long time, but it's there. It's ready for you to go. So those are the kinds of simple things, that I show my clients how to do is make your own convenience.
And it's much cheaper. So the fact that doesn't, it's so much cheaper. I just had a flash of the last time I bought some healthier whole food bars.
Right.
And I was like, why am I doing this? I should just make them. It's whole foods smashed together. And I have this at home. But even just, as you said, to just throw it in a bag, and because it's non-perishable, I can make 20 of them, throw them in all my bags, and always have a backup.
Exactly.
Yeah. What I've actually found, as I'm going through my health journey, I've started with my mornings, and I know that for me the easiest thing is to make a smoothie. But what I've been doing is doing that same concept of the snack bags, but putting all my smoothie mixture stuff together in a freezer bag, so that when I'm up in the morning and I'm already pushing myself to get up and go to yoga. Yes. So I'm already 10 more minutes of sleep. But if I have that smoothie bag, I just throw it in the blender with the liquid, and that is really speeds things up for me a lot.
And now with the advent of, these little small processing blenders, give a little promo to the Magic Bullet and things like that. Sometimes people will load up their cups the night before and in the morning add the liquid and boom, go. So, while you're making dinner, go ahead and load up your breakfast bullet. That's a cool idea, putting it in the Ziploc, because you can actually make a couple of those.
Right, exactly, yeah. I just put a few in my freezer. At least I'm set for the week, and I don't have to think about it when I'm in the middle of. I know how I am. I know I'm not going to want to think about it. So if I can just acknowledge how I am and deal with it in advance, then I'm much more likely.
Good point. You just said that's really important is to know yourself. And on all of these things, pick things that really resonate with you and be honest with yourself, that things that are doable, and then, roll those things out because you know yourself. And then just consistency is the name of the game. If nothing more, if you can have a healthy breakfast and say you weren't before, or having no breakfast or an unhealthy breakfast, now all of a sudden you do that one thing, and that adds so much value to your day, nutrition-wise. So taking it slow, keeping it simple for you, and be consistent.
That's actually why this channel is called Bite-Sized Changes, is because I'm always wanting to just throw everything out and start over, but I find that, especially in the context of a health journey, and we're talking about building sustainable habits to last a lifetime, it's not a diet, it's not a fad, it's not something that will come and go, so how can I really integrate things into my long-term life? And that's when I realized, okay, I have to bring it down. What's that one thing? Okay, I'm going to drink enough water. And I have my app that helps me drink enough water. Okay, I'm going to drink smoothies so I can get more fruits and vegetables in. What's my plan for that? So as you said, knowing yourself and picking those things, those bite-sized changes, what are those little changes you're going to make? You can stack those up, and before you know it, you've made more change by the end of the year than if you tried to do it all at once. So, and as you said, consistency, that's the name of the game when it comes to lifestyle. So I'm with you 100%.
So, just in terms of what you said, something that I do for my clients is I have quite a list of healthy habits that I've compiled, and I give it to the clients that I work with on a long-term basis at the beginning of our session, and then I say, these are the things that we aspire to. And every so often we'll do like a little inventory. Where am I? What habits have I incorporated? So it's very cool, especially for people who like checklists and going check, 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 to see that. And sometimes when you think, I'm still not doing this and I'm still not doing that, but then when you look at such a list, you realize, gosh, I really have made some change consistently. So it's important to stop along the way and reevaluate, and then acknowledge what you've accomplished, and of course keep going.
In acknowledging what you've accomplished, that idea, I remember I was watching some video, not health related, but just goal oriented, and the speaker was saying, oftentimes we get discouraged because we're always looking forward to where we want to be and seeing the gap of where we are versus where we want to be. But if we every now and then took an inventory of where we are versus where we were, then we might see that there's also a gap, and acknowledge how far we've come. And it's still being aspirational, still looking forward to how we want to grow, but it can shift things to a positive light. So I really like the idea of that checklist to just kind of come back in and assess, especially if you're doing small things. Sometimes you can forget that, oh, now I drink water all the time. It's a habit. I forget how I felt. I forget what it was like to be dehydrated all the time. So that little reminder of how far we've come, especially when we pile them up, is really cool. I like that idea. Checklists.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. The world is, I hate to say it, sort of pounding down on us. Stress is coming down on us. So we need to look for ways to see the positive and really point it out, celebrate it.
Right. So I know you mentioned to me in advance that you have a handout that's mix and match smoothie recipes. So for anybody that's interested in that, I will include a link somewhere where you can get it, or it will be in the description box. But that is a really great resource. Well, I'm already smoothie obsessed, but for anyone that wants to jump on the smoothie bandwagon, it's a good way to figure out how to get that balance. So thank you, Nora, for that. Do you have any other resources, any tips, books, websites that you think that you like to refer people to, or that you value in terms of staying healthy, or even just sticking to your habits?
Well, let's see. I definitely love food tracking. I think I mentioned that already. And I do use MyFitnessPal. It's one of the sites that I feel just has a pretty easy to use platform. And so, again, I just think that tracking with that is great. And I want to learn about the app that you just mentioned for water tracking. And then also, I received a newsletter or an email from a website called The Greatest. And The Greatest is the greatest. I mean, they have such relevant topics that, I often go, click on, it's a newsletter or an email that has various topics. And I use their resources all the time to post on my social media because it just boils it down to such easy, doable steps and, great recipes. So, love The Greatest.
So, as you mentioned, you're a coach, you work with clients. What does a typical coaching session look like for you? You've mentioned a few things, but if I wanted to sign up today, what would that experience look like?
Okay, well, I think I already led on that I love food logging, and it's huge for people to first get insight about what they're doing. Typically when they call me and they decide they want to start working with me and make some changes in their eating for whatever the reason might be, whether it just be to become healthier, to prevent chronic illness, or to address a situation that they currently have, they need to really realize, what am I eating? And I need to know that too. So I have them log, I look at that ahead of time, have them fill out a nutrition history form, which really gives me a lot of insight into their medical background. After all, nutrition is it's a physiological thing, and that's what I bring to the table. Is I'm able to analyze the science of nutrition and help put that into meaningful actions. Showing people how to eat. So I receive all that information and I analyze it, assess it, so that our first session I bring to the table a good first step. Recommendations for the first few action steps. Clearly I'm not going to say do, these 10 things because we already said it, that's not practical. Right. But globally, I'll say, this is where you should first put your efforts. This would be good. Typically it's hydration. That's what we talk about first. Everybody gets about hydration first. And I have a goal sheet, and it's a simple goal sheet, and we write down, all right, this week, this is what your focus will be. And it's pretty successful when people, eat the elephant one bite at a time, they end up being successful. So that's the nature of the process.
Well, thank you, Nora. That's all of my questions. Is there anything you think I missed? Anything you want viewers to know? Any parting words?
No, I think that you asked some really meaningful questions that hopefully touched each of the listeners today in some way to evoke some thought about where they are in their journey, on their continuum of nutrition, and move them closer to a direction of wanting to invest a little more in their own personal health each day and each week and each year of their lives, so that they can actually have that great health, which really is the absence of chronic illness and all the energy in the world. And so if that's what you want, get on that journey for good nutrition.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for joining me on this episode of Make It Stick. I'm so glad we got to chat with Nora Clemens. She's so knowledgeable and I learned a lot. I just hope you enjoyed hearing her as much as I did. If you have any questions for Nora or for me, if you want access to the resources that we mentioned, like that mix and match smoothie guide, then click the star in the menu bar to the left and all of the information will be found there. If you want to see our weekly episodes, then click subscribe to get that in your subscription feed, and hope to see you next week. Cheers to your success.